Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Actually, I moved to that one instead. So let's see who's on tonight. I hope everyone had a great week. Let's see who we have tonight. We have Killer. Great to see you, Killer. Thanks for moderating once again. Hope you're fine. We have Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you. We also have Enzo the God. Enzo certainly was a god. We have Katrina. Great to see you, Katrina. Lenan, great to have you on. Hope you're well tonight. We have Roseanne. Great to see you. Kathy Doyle, great to have you on once again, Kathy. We have Audrey, great to see you, Audrey. Thanks for all the comments, the very kind comments you post on the channel. Mark D, great to see you. Jean T, great to have you on once again, Jean T. Hope you're fine. We also have Yoni, great to see you, Yoni. Hedgehog Legs, great to see you, Hedgehog Legs. Hope you're fine tonight. Eddie, great to see you. We also have Chatty Rat, great to have you on, Chatty. HS, great to see you. Southern Germany here, full shelves. E10 Super is £1.54. And then Katrina writes, BP have taken to putting the price as £9.99 a litre to indicate that there's no petrol in stock, as opposed to just saying there's no petrol. FSM is the dog. FSM certainly is the dog. We also have Ed, great to see you. Number 3, great to have you on. We also have Richard, great to see you. Maria, great to see you. John O'Sullivan, great to have you on. Not hearing notifications for some reason. Don't know why that's happening. Let me see. That's weird. Silence. Ken, thanks so much for that super chat, Ken. So kind of you. Doc, so I'm gonna, well, we're up to 147, so I'm gonna have to go through it pretty quickly. We have CJM. We also have Marilyn, great to see you. Kendra, great. Reagan Elite, young Ralph, great to see you. Jim, now I hear that notification. Don't know why there's a bit of a delay there. Nicholas, great to see you. Night Raven, Monkeytron, Hedgehog Legs, thank you so much for that super chat. I've got the swearing covered. Go for it, Max. That's lovely. Thanks very much to Ken and to Hedgehog Legs. Hedgehog Legs, love the name, and yeah, thanks so much for all of your support over the year so far. Paul, great to see you. Inconsequential, great to see you. Common Sense. HS, thanks so much for that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you too. Hope you're well over there in Germany. Verti, great to see you. And Daily Blaze, great to have you on. Hope you're well tonight. And I'm sure we'll see another few fellow YouTubers jump on the stream, usually do. So I hope everyone's very well. Hope you had a good week. Let's jump into this. So, of course, we start off with this petrol crisis that, you know, the government are saying is going away, but of course it's not, and it's likely to continue for some time. Because if supplies are low, it doesn't mean that there are no supplies. It's just that it's difficult to get supplies to the petrol stations. So from the refineries to the petrol stations, because obviously there aren't enough drivers. So if the supplies are low because people were afraid they wouldn't actually get petrol, it takes time to recover from that, for the petrol stations to recover, and in the meanwhile people need to stay away. And in a way it probably is easing because people can't get petrol. There's no point going out looking for petrol if you think you're not going to get any, so people probably are avoiding using their cars. Others who have been queuing for hours on a daily basis or on a semi-daily basis probably decide, look, the weather's still good, I'll take the bike, or I'll walk, or I'll use public transport. So this will ease the stress or the pressure on the supply or on the smaller producers, but it's going to take a while. So the business secretary says petrol crisis part of Brexit transition away from low wage economy, says minister. So the current petrol crisis is the consequence of the Brexit transition away from low-income, high-immigration economy in which employers were able to fill vacancies by hiring cheap labour from abroad, a senior cabinet minister has said. Isn't it strange how the Tories now are saying, yeah, it's good that we don't have all these immigrants, it's good that we don't have all this cheap labour. It wasn't really a point, they didn't raise it as a point in the past, just now that there's a crisis, they're saying, yeah, it's actually better that we don't have all these workers. Because it's not that they actually care about that, it's a distraction. It's a way to convince the public that if you're suffering, don't worry, it's for the greater good. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng, I always have trouble pronouncing his surname, comments represent the most explicit link yet made by a member of Boris Johnson's government between Brexit and the labour shortage, which has left the UK with 100,000 fewer heavy goods vehicle drivers than it needs. Mr. Kwarteng said that employers opposed to higher wages were trying to use public pressure over essentials like petrol to force the government to issue large numbers of visas for foreign workers. So the industry that said to the Conservatives, to Brexiteers, that this is going to be a problem, leaving the single market, ending freedom of movement, this is going to create problems. And the response from the government at the time was, that's scaremongering, there won't be any problems. Now that the problems have arrived, the government are saying, they're just trying to use this as some sort of cudgel, or they're just using it to try and get more cheap labour. But they predicted these problems. Look, I've said before, as the economy expanded, in order to provide more to the public, there was a shortage of certain staff in certain sectors of the economy, and this was filled by migrants. If you build 50 hotels tomorrow and you need staff and there aren't staff in the local area, then you're going to reach out to further afield. If you can't find them, you're going to reach out further and further. And in a sense, hiring staff from abroad is like hiring staff from another part of the country. But the Brexiteers weaponized this fact in a way to convince the public that no, we can hire local people, get local people to do the work. But as I said, as the economy expanded, it required more and more workers, and the population wasn't sufficient in a way to compensate for that. So that's why so many workers came in. You happy with Starmer's performance at the conference? Thanks so much for that super chat, Ann98. Am I happy with Keir Starmer's performance? It was a little bit wooden. He didn't have a lot of passion in his speech, but I think he said some really interesting things, and on the whole, I think it was a good speech. I liked how he said that he explained how when he was growing up that his father taught him the value of work, and work linked to the Labour Party. Of course, there's a strong connection with work there. The name, it's in the name. So I think it's very important for the Labour Party to return to its roots, and also that I think Keir Starmer was making a contrast between himself and Boris Johnson, and he even made the point that his father was a tool maker, and so probably Boris Johnson's father is a tool maker too. I like that. Not hilarious, but it was a nice little joke, and I think he's trying to contrast himself with the Tories. Will it resonate with voters? I don't know yet, but they need to have a vision. Now, maybe the vision is to fix Brexit. That would be a good idea. I've been shouting about that for some time. I hope that's part of their vision. It can't be the whole vision, because you need to also have something else. Because a lot of people are just tired of Brexit. They don't want to hear any more about Brexit. So out of 10, I'd give it maybe a 7. It goes on to say, yes, so he says, Mr. Kwarteng said the employers opposed to higher wages, for visa for foreign workers, and agreed that the government must tough it out rather than submit to demands to change course. So the government just needs to be tough here. This is his opinion. But the problem with that is that the industry needs the workers now. So there's no point saying we just hire local people, just hire British people. But if there aren't British people available in the area, and if there are British people available in the area but they're not skilled, then how do you resolve the problem? You have to wait until they're trained up, but that takes months. It can even take a year. The Tory response to this is just let businesses sort it out. I said this before. Their response to every Brexit problem is let business sort it out. When it came to exporters, they just said, look, go set up in the European Union. We're not going to help you. We're not going to do anything for you. That's our advice. Set up in the European Union. Sort it out yourself. And I think that's what you're going to see going forward. The industry's saying, look, we can't operate here. We can't operate with two hands tied behind our back. And the response from the Tories will be, well, that's life. Life is tough. Yeah, we made it tough for you. You have to live it, but it's your problem. We don't give a crap. The Sir insulted the people of Scotland during his limited mention of the other equal partner of the union. So I'm led to believe I didn't listen to him. I didn't listen to the whole speech. It was an hour and a half long, so I don't know what he said about Scotland. I know there was some weird thing. I don't know if it was in the speech or if it was in an interview. He said something about Gordon Brown and blood donations. What? Yeah, it was something like, I think it was really weird how English people, when they donate blood and it goes to Scottish people, they don't mind. And was he implying that Scottish people don't want their blood donated to English people? What? I don't think there are people like that, and I don't think it's possible to be to even if you wanted to say, I don't want my blood being going to an Englishman. I don't think it works like that. And also it's not representative of the population. Anyway, speaking to the Conservative Home website, Mr. Kwarteng, I think is, said it was absolutely right to say that businesses were highlighting shortages in trade like road haulage, fruit picking and meat processing in the hope of pressuring the government to open the doors to labour from abroad. For many Leave voters, he said, Brexit was about the stagnation of wage levels seen following the introduction of freedom of movement for EU workers in 2004. See, this is what really pisses me off about all of this, is they will say, look, we have all these immigrants coming in and they're driving down wages. And then they stop there. That's all they do. They come into the country and they drive down wages. That's it. They don't contribute to society. Have they driven down wages? To a certain extent, and there is data for that, there is data against that. But let's say for example they do. For instance, they do. Hypothetical here. They drive down wages. But they drive down wages of jobs that British people don't want to do. So when it comes to heavy goods vehicle driving, they drive down the wages. Okay, let's say they drive down the wages. But there isn't exactly a queue of people to drive heavy goods vehicles today. The government have said that, well, not the government, but the industry have said that they've had to raise wages. But they haven't seen their doors being knocked down with applications because people don't want to do the job. There is of course a tipping point, but it's beyond the realm of many industries, many companies. Many smaller operators can't pay massive wages because they have very strict margins. I'm not advocating for low wages here. I think everyone should be paid. Look, I'm an advocate for UBI. Okay, I'm not an advocate for low wages, but as I said, the economy expanded. Certain new industries grew up. There was bigger demand for consumer goods, and to fill that demand, we needed more workers. We couldn't find them in the local area. We reached further afield. We couldn't find them further afield. So we continued all the way out until we found workers who were willing to do the job at that wage. And now that has ended, we're seeing the gap here. We're seeing the vacuum. Thanks for that super chat. We have one from Gareth. Gareth says, just want to let everyone know that my Ford Transit is still traumatized following his collision with the milkshake man, Nigel Farage. Pray for my van. Thanks so much. I'm really happy to hear that the van is okay, but it is a little bit traumatized. I'm sure it will get better. Thanks so much for that. That was hilarious. Nigel Farage, who doesn't have a job, well, apart from shouting his mouth off on GB News, which isn't actually necessary because he doesn't need to go on GB News, but I think he has enough money. But he decides, I'm going to go on GB News and shout my mouth off, which he could probably do from home. Is it really necessary that he goes to that crappy studio? Anyway, Nigel Farage decided, I'm going to drive around. I don't know. I don't even think it was him that was driving. Doesn't he have a chauffeur that takes him around in his Range Rover? Anyway, he said he was driving around, and then he had passed 7 petrol stations that were all, empty or full or whatever, like full of cars and empty of petrol. And he eventually had to stop at a roundabout. He had to stop on a roundabout, which isn't a good idea. And then he was hit by a van. There were no injuries, and the van was okay. Johan, thanks so much for that super chat on the conference speech. Starmer is a bit boring. To me, that's a good sign. Merkel and Schultz are boring. Isn't Mario Draghi rather boring too? Yes, boring is good. Since Donald Trump and, well, we haven't got rid of Boris Johnson yet, so boring would be nice. But I think the public like someone with a bit of energy, though. But then it's difficult to predict how people are going to view politics over the next number of years, because probably there isn't an election this year, maybe not one next year, more likely one the year after. And I'm not sure how people are going to view Boris Johnson and his sort of antics. I think it's difficult to compare politics in Britain with politics and the United States with politics in Europe, in the rest of Europe, because it seems boring is good, but people are still happy with Boris Johnson. The Tories are taking a bit of a hitting, but Boris Johnson is still very popular. He's on his watch, over 130,000 people died. Brexit, an absolute disaster. Just put any other politician in that place and they would have resigned or been forced out ages ago. But Boris Johnson is made of Teflon, I think. Mr. Quarters was asked whether this difficulty with the petrol is part of a debate about the sort of economy the UK should have after Brexit, in which some employers basically want to go back to the old days. They want government to issue hundreds of thousands of visas, and they're trying to use public pressure to get you to change course. That's absolutely right, he said. He replied, having rejected the low-wage, low-immigration model, we're always going to try to transition to something else. We're seeing what we're seeing now is part of that transition. This is a pile of crap, because why would you issue visas for 3 months? I think these visas are not for European Union drivers. They're for drivers from outside the European Union, maybe from Africa, from Asia, from South America, where wages are much lower. You can bring workers in really cheaply. This is not about raising wages, because if the Conservatives were about raising wages, wouldn't you think they would support a national living wage? They would increase the minimum wage. They would make it, £15 an hour. But they're not, because they don't care about raising wages. This is just another attempt to convince the public that they care. But in reality, they don't give a crap. Let me read more of your comments. Because if I saw Nigel Farage, I might very well be inclined to hit the gormless git. Just don't understand how Boris Johnson is still so popular. He should be in jail for subversion of democracy. Yes, why is he so popular? I think it's this persona he gives off. He's charismatic. I know it's difficult to believe, but he is charismatic. People like him because he's a bit of a buffoon, because he doesn't take things too seriously. I don't understand how people are happy with that. I understand why they are happy, but I understand their happiness, but I don't understand why. What do you get out of it? He's thrashing the country. He's partly responsible for Brexit, and people still think he's doing a good job. James Gillen, thanks so much for that super chat. Damn it, Farage is still alive. The van didn't do its job. I'm happy that Nigel Farage has not been injured. I don't want any injury to come to him at all. It's very important that there are no injuries involved here. Okay. Thanks for that super chat. Johnson said Britain's been maligned on cheap EU labour. What a grade A hypocrite. Look, it's about they want to bring in labour from other parts of the EU, from the other parts of the world. They don't care about raising wages. They're talking about reducing standards. Lowering quality standards, lowering worker protections. How is that raising wages? How is that making people better off? Because he calls himself Boris, and people see him as a child because he acts childlike. We're all doomed. But as you said elsewhere, Max, Barnier said he's a serious politician. See, that's the thing. Boris Johnson acts the buffoon, but Boris Johnson is no buffoon. Boris Johnson knows that if he ruffles his hair and says some stupid things, he can get away with it. People will laugh at him. But he's ruthless. And you can see how he has surrounded himself with yes men and yes women. No real challenges. Because he knows that, maybe with the exception of Rishi Sunak, but I think he has a lot of baggage, reasonable amount of baggage. There aren't any real threats to Boris Johnson in the cabinet. No one's very popular. You have either toxic people or you have absolute buffoons, real buffoons, not fake ones like Boris Johnson. So I think he's in a very safe position, and he's not to be trusted at all. But not only because he's a liar, but because he's a nasty individual. Scotland, DC, thanks for that super chat. Scotland will probably be free in a few years, but what do you think the future holds for Gibraltar? Gibraltar is moving closer and closer to, as far as I know, it's part of Schengen now. Look, the people in Gibraltar know which side their bread is buttered, and they know that the Tories would be willing to throw them under a bus if necessary. Look, they just have to look at Northern Ireland and they can see that, look, the Tories have no interest in protecting us, maintaining. They'll do it if it benefits them politically for a bit, and then will be forgotten about. And I think the people of Gibraltar understand that their future is in Europe, not as part of the United Kingdom. It's not part of the United. It's a little bit separate. Thanks for that super chat. Van Man Talks, great to see you on the stream. Hope you're well tonight. Hope it wasn't you. When I heard about Nigel Farage being hit by a van, the first person I thought was, Van Man Talks, what have you been up to? Did Nigel Farage check the van for immigrants? He probably did. Although maybe not if he didn't have his camera crew with him. Peter, thanks so much for that super chat. Yeah. Van Man Talks, did you manage to fill up? I hope you did. You have more right to be on the road than Nigel Farage has. Nigel will get a lot of chances with these lorries when the new lorry drivers are all over the world would hit British roads. Johnson is an alligator in a clown suit, yes. You forgot about the Navy base there? Yes, the Navy base. Oh yes, it's strategic in Gibraltar. But at the end, I don't see Gibraltar becoming part of the European Union, but moving closer and closer to that. Did the van driver deliberately hit him? Probably not. I doubt Nigel Farage was driving. He was probably sitting in the back. So it's unlikely that the drivers... And then it's probably not a good idea to drive into people from behind. It does terrible things to your insurance. What do you call it? Your insurance bonus malus here in Italy. I don't remember what you call it. Your rating. So you don't get more points on your license or whatever, or your insurance premium doesn't go up. We must put Farage checking lorries, and he seems to enjoy it. If you watch my video today, you'll find out. Okay, let's move on. So you have to get used to Brexit. Brexit is about transitioning away from a low-wage economy, says the Minister. So I want to show you this. This is from The Guardian. It says here, today, petrol retailers were not getting enough fuel to fix crisis. Petrol retailers have warned that the fuel crisis is improving far too slowly, and that they are not receiving enough fuel to meet demand and clear the queues. The Petrol Retail Association reports that 26% of its members' petrol stations are still dry today. There is barely enough improvement on Thursday, when 27% were out of fuel. Just 47% of forecourts have both petrol and diesel in stock, which is worse than yesterday, when 52% had both grades on offer. That leaves 27% of forecourts only offering either petrol or diesel, up from 21% yesterday. The PRA represents independent retailers who account for about 2/3 of the UK's 8,380 UK filling stations. The government said that they were going to send tankers. We have something like 170 tankers available to service 8,380 filling stations. Maybe not 8,000 altogether, but at least 4,000, which are in need of fuel. Gordon Balmer, executive director of the PRA, says independent petrol stations are not receiving enough fuel compared to supermarkets. Until this is fixed, motorists will continue to suffer long queues, he warns, another signal that the crisis is going to continue. As I said at the beginning of the stream, I think what's going to happen is people are just going to avoid going to the petrol station, and then things will start gradually recovering, because as fewer people go, there'll be less fuel taken out, which will allow the petrol stations to recover. But it's a gradual process, because many people can't avoid going to the petrol station because they need fuel to put in their car to go to work, for example, or they have other essential travel. Probably what's going to happen is people who are using the car for non-essential travel will avoid using the car altogether, and this will ease the pressure on the petrol stations. Brexit is going very well. It's going very well. I asked a question on Twitter. I'd love to ask Brexiteers, and if anyone is in contact with any Brexiteers, ask them, what would things look like if Brexit was going badly? They say that, Brexit is going well, although it's only we're down to about 14% of the population think that Brexit is going well. I'd love to know who these 14% are. But if you manage to get in contact with any of them, ask them, what would Brexit look like if it was going badly? There'd be food shortages. Yeah, we have that. Okay, there'd be queues at the petrol. Yeah, we have that. There would be trouble exporting. No, we have that. Okay, give us some examples. Airplanes would be falling out of the sky. Okay, we haven't got to that stage yet, but maybe give it time. Can't drive to a petrol station if the tank is empty anyway. Very good point, Eddie. Yes. It's like, I put petrol in it last week, but it's empty now. Go put some petrol in it. I can't. It's empty. So that will ease the pressure on the petrol suppliers. A Ukrainian heavy goods vehicle driver, Vitaly Sherbeniv, was stabbed to death in September 18th while parked up in his cab at Belvedere Station, London. He arrived in the UK 3 days earlier. My God, I'm so sorry to hear that. A local vigil being held. I don't know the motivation behind that, so it's better for me not to comment. Condolences to his family for that. Ed Stacey says all predicted in Operation Yellowhammer. That's true. Most of these things were predicted, and some other things were predicted that may not have happened yet. But I remember one of them that stuck out like a sore thumb was fuel shortages. And at the time I was thinking, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because the fuel has to be imported. And if there's trouble importing, I didn't understand how there would be trouble to import, because I thought, look, the UK could just leave the border open. They could decide which goods are checked or not. But I didn't think about the numbers of drivers. I thought they would be able to prioritize, if necessary, they could prioritize certain goods like fuel, food, bread, whatever, water. These would be prioritized, but I didn't think it would be so bad that there would even be problems getting fuel. I was almost looking at Operation Yellowhammer and thinking Project Fear. It can't be that bad. But yes, it was. 14% is Boris Johnson's illegitimate kids. There we go. We found it. And they all watch GB News. No, they don't. GB News wished 14% of the population watched it. I bet the government is planning more bank holidays. Sir Mary of Petrolheads, Friends of the Persia Day, and National Dig Your Own Well weekend. Very good. Yeah, probably something. Yeah, that's a good way to keep people at home, puts less pressure on the fuel shortage. Umka, thanks so much for that super chat. Tories paraphrase. Let them eat brioche of Marie Antoinette. Let them drive EVs then. As a huge advocate for electric cars, I really like that comment. Yes. But it's interesting because there has been a surge in interest for electric cars in the UK. So we could have actually found, finally, under all that crap, under all that manure, we found a Brexit benefit. So a transition to electric vehicles, just in time for the blackouts. Thanks for Umka. Thanks so much for that. DC, once again, thank you so much for that super chat. If Ireland reunite, will British citizens who live in Northern Ireland, who was not born there, be offered Irish citizenship? So British citizens who live in Northern Ireland, I think they would be. Well, they would be able to apply, I think. That's an interesting question. It's not something that comes normally. What comes up is, yes, if you've been born on the island of Ireland, you can claim, well, in Northern Ireland, you can claim a British passport or an Irish passport. Be interesting what some of the Brexiteer unionists are thinking at this moment. Should I get an Irish passport? It could be quite useful, but I better not tell anyone about it. But if Ireland reunite, will British citizens who live in the... I presume you're talking about people who just moved there, who were not born there. I would presume that, yes, they would be able to... they would be offered Irish citizenship. Well, I think they can apply for it if they have a connection, if they have a grandparent who was born in Ireland. That's automatic. But I think it could be possible. I don't know if the Irish government would be planning to do something like that, but I think it would be something positive to offer. Thanks so much for that, Super Chat. I'm sorry I can't answer your question. It is a bit hypothetical because we're still waiting to see if there will be a united Ireland. I think it's inevitable, but how the ins and outs of it will work is still a bit beyond our vision. Coming from Germany, I thought I arrived in a third world country. In short, the British are still the proudest slaves I've ever met. Third world country. So Brexit is just the next move to take the British into the next level of being proper subjects. The rest of the EU will hopefully not follow with that direction. It's really sad how the British people have been led on by these Brexiteers, being convinced to vote against their own interest, convinced that destroying the economy is a good idea because in return for lost jobs, lost investment, you get sovereignty, you get control. Means nothing to most people. I'd love for the Brexiteers to define sovereignty. Yeah, we can make our own rules. Yeah, but you could make your own rules before. If you don't believe me, Scotland and England have different laws. So if all the laws came from Europe, then you wouldn't have different laws. Why are there so many EVs in Germany? Very long commuting, paying 100,000 for a Tesla, while 20,000 Skoda does the job better. There are huge incentives as well, and then there's access. If you have an electric vehicle, you can also park in the center of many cities. There's actually free parking in some cases. Yeah, you're not going to buy a Tesla for 100,000 just for free parking, but electric car chargers sold here. The scary part is that some are still misled. Yes, Mr. Mac. Unfortunately, many people are still 14%. It seems. Anyway, let's move on. It says here. From the Independent, government asked German residents to drive lorries even if they've never have before. Oh my god, it's like absolute desperation from Brexiteers. The government has asked thousands of German residents in the UK to drive lorries to assist in the heavy goods vehicle shortage, even if they've never driven one before. A letter was sent by the Department for Transport, signed by Transport Minister Baroness Veer, asking Germans who live in Britain to consider returning to the heavy goods vehicle driving sector. The letter states, your valuable skills and experience have never been more needed than they are now. Germans, I thought you didn't want foreigners. There are fantastic heavy goods vehicle driving opportunities in the logistics industry, and conditions of employment have been improving across the sector. This is not true. Well, in a sense, they've been improving very, very slowly. And if you compare, I don't know who was it that was saying it, but if you compare the conditions yes, it was Fact Not Fiction I was speaking to recently, who said, if you compare the conditions in the UK with conditions in Spain or in Germany or in France, drivers have much better services available. The pay is better, and the services available to them, where they have to stop on the side of the road somewhere to park so they can sleep, a safe place, places where they can get a meal 24 hours a day, somewhere they can have a shower, a rest area. So these are very important if you're traveling, long distance. And these are vital services, and they're not really available in the UK because I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's not considered important. So it's difficult to lure drivers back because, as I said before, the money is one thing, but you need to actually provide a good environment for people to work in. Otherwise, they'll come for a bit, make some money, tolerate it, and then leave. But you want people to stick at it long term. As well as attractive pay rates, we are seeing more options for flexible working, fixed hours, fixed days, full-time and part-time. German driving license issued before 1999 include an entitlement to drive a small to medium-sized truck up to 7.5 tons. It is understood that almost all Germans residing in the UK who hold such a license has been sent a letter, almost none of whom have ever driven a heavy goods vehicle before. This is interesting. One 41-year-old German man who received two copies of the letter at his London home on Friday morning, one addressed to him and another to his wife, told The Independent. Let me just pause this. We were quite surprised, he said. I'm sure paying conditions for heavy goods vehicle drivers have improved, but ultimately I have decided to carry on in my role at an investment bank. My wife has never driven anything larger than a Volvo, so she is also intending to decline the exciting opportunity. I mean, definitely exciting. Have you ever driven a heavy goods vehicle before? No, that doesn't matter. think of the fun. 40 tons, have you ever driven something 40 tons? Wow. Ian M, thanks so much for that super chat. A little drink for Timmy, the Witherspoons guy. Oh, that's amazing. Thanks so much for that, Ian. Witherspoons, the Brexit's Wurzel Gummidge. Don't confuse him with Boris Johnson. Tim Martin, from Witherspoons. Allegedly, the company lost £150 million this year because of both COVID and Brexit. They can't get staff. And the guy campaigned for Brexit. Mr. Witherspoons. Thanks so much for that super chat. So karma is a beach. John, thanks so much for that. Should you argue with 70 or 80-year-old relatives about Brexit worth it? Probably not. Look, the problem with arguing with, and I'm not trying to belittle anyone who's any elderly people, but I think the people who voted for the older people who voted for Brexit voted to turn the clock back. Oh, wasn't it good back in the 1970s? Oh, wasn't it great back in the 60s? Oh, you could do this, you could do that. A very romantic nostalgia of bygone era. And of course, we all have this. We all think back to our childhood, and we cherry pick the positives, and we tend to ignore the negatives. And Brexiteers are perfect at this. They're very good at highlighting, oh, look how great it was back, before we joined the European Union. And they forget all about, the sick man of Europe and the economic problems that came with that, unemployment, lack of investment in infrastructure. And it was a difficult time. That's why Britain decided to join the European community, or the common market, the European community at the time, to get better. to improve. And of course, many people, more elderly people, have very romantic images of the past, and they would like to return to that. Turn the clock back. In a similar way, many older people voted for Donald Trump because he said, we'll make America great again. Remember when America was great? Probably in their mind, oh yeah, when I was a kid back in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s or whatever. Hope I didn't miss another chat. Okay. My dad has admitted that he should not have voted for Brexit, but my stepmother is still stubborn. I just love to know what are the benefits. But two questions. What are the benefits for the country, and what are the benefits for you? How did you benefit from this? Because I don't buy the thing that, I voted to make the country better. No, you voted, you got off your arse and went down to that polling booth and you cast your ballot for yourself, for something you wanted. Now, it could have been to give the government a bloody nose. It could have been because you don't like immigrants. It could have been to protect the price of your house because you don't like people coming into the country, under the belief that they're going to drive down house prices or something. You didn't like David Cameron. You didn't like Europeans in general. There must have been some reason why you personally voted for Brexit. I generally don't engage with people who say, no, I did it for the country. No, that they're generally, maybe some of them did, but generally, no, it's not the case. People can come out, but there are people who regret it, and I fully respect that. We all make mistakes. Peter, thanks so much for that super chat. Clocks go back. Tell them British summertime ends. Tell them British summertime ends on the 31st of October. Thanks for that. But I think they want to turn the clocks back to 1973. Need coffee back soon? It's a bit late for coffee. We have 456 viewers and only 160 likes. Smash that like button, guys. Anyway, let's move on. So German, this is very interesting. So German people who have a particular driving license are being offered a job as a heavy goods vehicle driver, even though they've never set foot in one. The Department of Transport has said that data protection rules meant that they were unable to filter the results. The DFT spokesperson said the letter was automatically sent to almost 1 million. It's like phishing. Aren't there laws against that? People with heavy goods vehicle driving licenses, and it was impossible to narrow the copy list by profession due to personal data protection. But that'd be soon gone under Brexit. So you'd be able to spam, the government would be able to spam you whatever they want. The Treasury has denied that the shortage of heavy goods vehicle drivers in the UK is related to Brexit, of course. Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Simon Clarke, told the BBC Today programme yesterday, the difficulties we are facing are not unique to this country. Well, the shortages are not, but the consequence of the shortages are. The idea that there is somehow just a British problem is fundamentally wrong. There's a shortage of 400,000 heavy goods vehicle drivers across Europe. Across Europe. 400,000 spread across 600 million people. While Britain has a shortage of 100,000 spread over 60 million people. There's a bit of a difference there. But also, we can see the results of that. Supermarket shelves here in Italy, supermarket shelves in Spain, in Germany, in France, are not empty. They are in Britain. There are shortages. There aren't people queuing. I posted a picture myself on Twitter yesterday of petrol station. There was one car at the petrol station. I think it was about 6 p.m. in the evening. The petrol stations here is a little... I don't know if they are available in the UK where you can just pay with the credit card. So you don't need an attendant. You just drive up there and fill up your car with and pay by credit card. So it's 24 hours. But at 6 p.m. there was people still traveling around, but there was one car at the petrol station. Patricia, thanks so much for that super chat. The difficulties are not unique. The extent to the effect and difficulties of the difficulties is, yes. Brexit benefit, my 10-year passport will only last 2 years. The stamps at least tell me when I travelled. Sure, Bojo will will be dynamic and offer 20-year passports. Watch this space. Yes. Infinite passports. Liz, please do not start driving a truck. Okay. I just want to cover another story here about Brexit before, and then we'll move on to other things. It says here up to 120,000 pigs in the UK face culling due to the lack of abattoir workers. Farmers have warned that up to 120,000 pigs face culling because of a lack of abattoir workers as acute labour shortages across supply chains continue to wreak havoc on the UK economy. Rob Muttner, the chair of the National Pig Association, said Britain was facing an acute welfare disaster within a matter of weeks, with farmers forced to kill their livestock because of an acute shortage of butchers and slaughterers. We are within a couple of weeks of having to consider a mass cull of animals in this country, he told BBC Radio 4 programme on Friday. We think our backlog is in the region of 100,000 to 120,000 as we stand today, and it is growing by around 12,000 a week. This is happening on pig farms all over the country. They are backed up and running out of space to keep animals. One farmer said that he was being told to expect further delays next week in the number of animals able to be transported, as there are not enough workers at meat processing plants to handle the loads. The problem in the industry has got considerably worse over the last 3 weeks, said Mortimer. A cull involving either shooting them on the farm or taking them to an abattoir and disposing them in a skip. These animals won't go into the food chain. They will either be rendered or sent for incineration. This is an absolute travesty. He said that the combination of post-Brexit immigration rules and an exodus of foreign workers amid constantly shifting pandemic restrictions on travel had left the industry at crisis point. The National Pig Association urged retailers not to turn to cheaper pork from European Union suppliers to stave off a shortage on the shelves. This is another consequence of Brexit. So you can't get the workers to slaughter the animals, so you have a backup on the farms. And then the supermarkets can't actually get the meat products to sell in the supermarkets because they can't get the goods in from the farms because there aren't enough drivers. But they can get them in from Europe. So Europe is going to benefit once again at Britain's expense, and British farming is going to suffer. And then, of course, we have the worst part of all of this as well. Munner said farmers were keeping stock on their farms far longer, even though they were over the ideal weight for slaughter. He gave the example on his farm of some pigs are now weighing 25 kilos over prime, but farmers were out of space and there was a welfare issue. Pens and sheds are not designed for animals of that size, he said, and we're heading for an acute welfare disaster quickly. And then you have all of these animals stuck in farms that they can't get out of, and they're growing. The pigs continue to grow. They don't just stop. They have to be fed, and this is a cost for the business. But then this animal welfare issue as well. All these pigs stuck in places where they can't move, they can't get up, they can't sit down. It's disgraceful, and it's a consequence of Brexit. You should take people like Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, Jacob Rees-Mogg, take them to the farm, get them to work on the farm for a week, understanding the consequences that they have, the consequences of their actions. Would they have a heart and turn around and say, yeah, we were wrong, this was a mistake, we shouldn't have done this, the farmers are suffering, the animals are suffering, the country is suffering? At what stage will they turn around and say, yeah, this was a mistake? No, they won't. Because it's impossible for them to do that. I don't know whether it's narcissism or whether it's the idea that they have a vested interest in maintaining this. If you don't feed them, they'll eat the barn. They won't care about that, Max. No. Richard, thanks so much for that super chat. Had my European sales meeting yesterday. Was frankly embarrassing seeing how much the UK has slid versus the optimism of the others. Soul destroying. I'm so sorry to hear that. Just it's getting worse and worse. Thanks so much for that super chat. It's just getting worse and worse, and there isn't a leader at the top who's saying, okay, let's turn the ship around, let's get out of this quagmire. There's no one, because the people at the top are ignoring there's a problem. It's like the Titanic once again. You know, the Titanic is heading to the iceberg. The iceberg has hit. The ship is sinking. And they're saying, no, there is no iceberg. They're still denying there's an iceberg as water is filling the lower decks. And what you need, you know, is it possible to stop the flooding? Not in the case of the Titanic, but in the case of Brexit, you need someone in charge who's willing to get all hands on deck and stop the flooding and try and save the ship. Is it possible to save the ship? I believe it's possible. Not in the once again the case of the Titanic, but in the case of Brexit, I think it is solvable. It is possible if you have the right people in charge. If they say, right, now let's roll up our sleeves, let's get this thing sorted out. Let's start issuing visas. Let's start the process of rejoining the single market and the customs union. Let's eventually work towards rejoining the European Union in some form. Yes, we're not going to get back what we had before. That's pretty much impossible. But working as close as possible to that. Max, Jacob Rees-Mogg could do it 50 years before Brexit works out. Make Isabel Oxshott spend a week working on a pig farm. I'd have her working, digging a ditch for a week, yes. Then she'd... she wanted to do that for publicity. Like, it was about promoting herself or promoting GB News or whatever. Just one thing before we finish with, before we do the break, I want to show one more story on Brexit. It says here, business chiefs warn against suspending Northern Ireland Protocol. So Lord Frost told triggering Article 16 would add to legal uncertainty for traders and damage economy. Business leaders have warned Lord Frost that triggering Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol could be a lose-lose move. As Frost prepared to reiterate his... So Lord Frost is going to be speaking at the Conservative Party conference. He has I think he has a presentation of something like 15 minutes, or I think something like that. So it's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say. I think it's going to be more of the same. Yeah, we're going to trigger Article 16 if we want. We've reached the threshold. He won't give any examples, of course. He won't explain how. But oh, I missed Reagan Elite's super chat. Oh, let me go back up. Sorry about that. They seem to pop off the screen. Reagan Elite, sorry about that. I'm very disappointed. No, I think I read that before. I'm very oh no, maybe I didn't. Sorry, Reagan. Thanks so much for that super chat. I'm very disappointed that the van driver didn't have a milkshake for Nigel when he hit his van. Yeah, it would be. Wouldn't it have been poetic if Nigel Farage was drinking a milkshake when he was hit from behind, and he spilled it on top of himself? That would have been hilarious. Thanks for that super chat. Sorry I missed your thanks to Conservative for highlighting it. Sometimes the super chats disappear off the screen for a moment and I don't see it. But it would be nice. Yes, I would love to know who it was that hit Farage's van or his car And I'd love to know which way he voted in 2016. He or she voted in 2016. Anyway, goes on to say, thanks for that. As Frost prepares his threat to suspend the protocol using Article 16, you don't suspend the protocol using Article 16. In two appearances next week's Conservative Party conference, businesses in Northern Ireland have said that such a step would add to the legal uncertainty for traders and damage the economy. Yes, if the government are saying we're going to suspend the protocol, which is working, and businesses are benefiting from it, then of course they're going to say, why would you do this? It's just going to make things worse for us. Yeah, it's not perfect, but we're benefiting from it at the expense of Great Britain. There are empty supermarket shelves, there's fuel shortages, and what you have is Brexiteers in Northern Ireland saying, yeah, we want some of that too. We want that. We don't have empty supermarket shelves, we don't have fuel shortages in Northern Ireland, but we would love to, because we want to have the same as the rest of the UK. It's not fair. We want to suffer too. We want, not us personally, because we'll be okay, but we want the country, we want Northern Ireland to suffer too. Those at the meeting said Frost made it clear that triggering Article 16 was under consideration, but that it would not be dumping the protocol completely. Okay, so then if he's going to trigger Article 16, where? Because Article 16 is there to protect the protocol. See, there's this misunderstanding. I don't know if it's an intentional misunderstanding or not, but Article 16 does not suspend the protocol. It allows you to suspend part of the protocol in a very limited and specific way. It's time constraint. There's a time constraint on it, and it requires a lot of bureaucracy as well. You need to, if you're going to invoke Article 16, it needs to be run past the joint committee first. Both sides have to agree in a sense to it, and then it's triggered, and then it has to do its job, and it has to have a scope, and it has to have an objective. You can't just say, I'm going to trigger Article 16 on a whim. There's a process, and that's good. You shouldn't be allowing politicians just to pull it out as some sort of joker from a pack. It has to have a function, it has to have a scope, and it has to be time limited. Otherwise, it just go on and on. And I think, I hope Lord Frost knows this, but he's just playing political games here. Lying. Sorry. That's another name for political games. Lying. It goes on to say, they said that triggering Article 16 would have a chilling effect on trade and in and out of Northern Ireland. It could create uncertainty. Not so much the triggering of Article 16, but the idea that the UK government would do that. There's no benefit to the UK government in invoking Article 16 or triggering Article 16. Doesn't benefit the UK government at all. But using it as a threat, they can continue to maintain this facade of we are in charge, we hold all the cards, we're going to stand up to the European Union in order to get some sort of concessions or so. But I don't think the European Union is providing any concessions. Philip, thanks so much for that super chat. Unionists in Northern Ireland be like, notice me, Westminster Senpai. That's hilarious. It's like, yeah, look at us. We want to be like you. We have it good, but we want to have it bad. It will not persuade a single person who is not supplying Northern Ireland already to do so. That those who are already trading with Northern Ireland may stop supplying Northern Ireland because they may find themselves in legal jeopardy at boardrooms, will want to comply with the law. And thirdly, EU customers who are buying from Northern Ireland may decide not to do so because they will consider it too much of a hassle in the legal uncertainty, said one business leader at the meeting. You're adding confusion to a stable situation. Why would you do that? The warnings came days after the Democratic Unionist Party, which voted for Brexit, entered an alliance with the three rival parties to fight for substantial changes to the protocol, which has meant fresh red tape for businesses in Great Britain selling into Northern Ireland. Isn't it interesting that they haven't actually provided an alternative to the protocol? They keep saying, we need to get rid of the protocol. The protocol is broken. The protocol doesn't work. Okay, what's your alternative? We need to get rid of the protocol. That's all I hear. I've yet to hear an alternative, a viable alternative. Now, some of them will say, yeah, well, there's Lord Frost's command paper. Okay, but the European Union have said that's not workable. Next. You can't just say, this is what we're going to replace it with. It has to be something that both sides agree to. You can propose it, and if the European Union say, okay, yeah, we like that, that's actually better than the protocol. It's better for both sides. Yeah, let's implement that. Sure. But the protocol is the best thing that's on the table so far. Everything that's been presented so far doesn't come close to what the protocol represents. And it's the problem as well is that what is being presented isn't thought out clearly. It's political. There are no experts involved. It's Brexiteers who are deciding these things. And we've seen over the last number of months what happens when Brexiteers decide things. Some sources surmise that that triggering Article 16 will be a political masterstroke, giving the DUP, which has threatened to quit Stormont, the chance to declare victory over the EU and calm unionist anxieties. I don't know if that's going to happen. But yes, it would help the DUP, but how does it help Boris Johnson? Business leaders in Britain, in regular meetings with the Cabinet Office and Downing Street representatives, question whether the government has the political stomach to trigger Article 16 when it will merely result in souring relations with the EU and end up with both sides having to re-enter talks, albeit on a more formal basis. And this is not something that I don't think Boris Johnson wants to do this, because he wanted to get Brexit done. You're not getting Brexit done if you're reopening Brexit talks again. How would he sell that to the public? Yeah, we're going to fix the Northern Ireland Protocol because we're going to renegotiate. So we're going to have negotiations with the European Union again. Now, that might sell well to the unionists in Northern Ireland, but to the British public, they'll be like, what? Why are we talking to I thought we were finished with the European Union. Why are we talking with them again? Unless it's to rejoin the single... No, not to rejoin the single market. No, okay. So how does this benefit us again? It benefits the DUP. Does it benefit businesses in Northern Ireland? No. Does it benefit businesses in Great Britain? No. So then, does it benefit the British people in Great Britain? No. It benefits the DUP. That's the only benefit. That's the only one who would benefit from this. The DUP want fuel shortages and empty shelves like Britain. Yes, they do. They do. Is Max missing more super chats? Oh, I hope I'm not. Oh, Cole, sorry. I think I missed another one. Damn it, I keep missing some. I had the European meeting. Okay, let me move down. Sorry. Richard Turner says, ironic you say, I work in shipping. It is ironic, yes. Thanks for that super chat again, Richard. Damn it, I don't know why they didn't appear before. Cole says, hi from Dundalk, Max. I love the stream you had with Phil. Thanks. I hope to do some more of those streams, those live streams with a guest. I'm snowed under at the moment with a lot of things, and I'm trying to sort things out. But I will have some more interesting ones in the pipeline, definitely. And there's a lot of people I'd like to do some live streams with. I read out Philippe's before, and then we have to go to our comedy moment. yes, what happens is the chat acts a bit strange. We have another one from Paul. Thanks so much for that. EU sources say that they believe that triggering Article 16 was a matter of when, not if. When is your opinion? What's your opinion? I don't think, and if I say this, I'd be probably wrong. But so I think if Boris Johnson wanted to invoke Article 16, he would have done it already. But as I said before, Article 16 is not some sort of panacea. It's not going to fix all problems. It's just there as, it's like releasing a valve where you have hundreds of different valves. Yes, it will release the pressure in one area, but that's not going to end everything. See, what's happened? The problem is with Article 16 is it's been exaggerated in Northern Ireland. So the unionist community, and in particular the DUP, have been banging on about how we need to invoke Article 16 because that will end the protocol, and it doesn't. They're lying to the public when they say that. If you don't believe me, look at Article 16 yourself. It just says that it allows for suspension in order for time to resolve the problem. Now, the British government has said that they have reached the threshold of our invoking Article 16. They've said it weeks ago. So why haven't they invoked it? If you think something is creating a problem and you have the power to stop that problem, then wouldn't you do it? Why would you wait and wait and wait and wait? Now, I know the Brexiteers and Boris Johnson wait and wait and wait until something a problem gets to its apex, and then they decide. But the Northern Ireland Protocol is not a problem. It's not like empty supermarket shelves. It's the opposite. It's not like a heavy goods vehicle driver problem. It's the opposite. So it's not creating a problem. It's solving a problem. Brexit is the problem. So Boris Johnson is letting Brexit run its course and destroy the economy. But he's saying we need to wait for the right time to invoke Article 16. Well, he said already that this is the right time. So that's why I don't think he's going to invoke Article 16. Some people in Europe may believe he is. Maybe they have their ear closer to the ground than I do. But I don't see him doing it because there's no real benefit for Boris Johnson. The only people who would benefit would be the DUP. And the DUP have no sway over Boris Johnson. You have to always think about, how does Boris Johnson or the Tories benefit from doing this thing? That's the rule of thumb. Helping poor children, they don't do it. If they're pressured into helping, feeding hungry children, at Christmas or at Easter, they'll do it because it benefits them in some political way, or it takes the heat off them. Article 16 is 14 lines long and very clear. More should read it. Yes, Cahal. It's not complicated. It's very clear and it's very well written. And I think the protocol is a very, very well written document because it allowed for an almost impossible situation. There were risks with the protocol, but it turned out that those risks were mitigated in a sense. So there is no need for a border on the island of Ireland, which would have meant infrastructure, which would have run in conflict with the Good Friday Agreement. So the protocol got rid of that. That's the most important part of it. It also protects the single market. Now, there wasn't a need for a protocol if Boris Johnson agreed to remain within the single market and the customs union and maintain freedom of movement. That would have been, there would have been no protocol. We wouldn't even have heard of a protocol. But that was not what the Brexiteers wanted. Stop picking on the boomer. Okay, so guys, I want to take a little break, of course, a short break for a couple of moments, just to show you a funny video, and then we'll get back to the serious stuff in a moment. This one you will like.
So, Michael, I wanted to talk to you about your job. Is this about finally improving my working conditions? No, I'm afraid we've had a vote in the office, and by a narrow majority, we've decided we want you to leave. Leave? Yes, leave. We just don't think we need you anymore. But I do a lot of stuff in logistics that's really quite important. Someone else will step up. I mean, if you can do it, it can't be that hard. Nobody's irreplaceable. Okay, do you want me to leave right now, or...? To be honest, not everybody's happy with the decision, so I think we're just going to have a big argument about it for a few weeks. Okay, all sorted. We definitely want you to leave. But half of the company's off sick at the moment. Are you sure this is the best time for me to go? Absolutely. And you're confident you've got people who can step up and do the work that I was doing? 100%. Even though it's quite hard and not very well paid and requires a lot of training? Look, we've got other people in the company about to lose their jobs. They'll jump at the chance to step up. Okay, well, good luck then. Goodbye forever. Please come back. What happened to the other people? They didn't step up. So what's going on? Mostly chaos. So you'll have me back full time? No, God no. You can come back for 3 months and then we'll ask you to leave again before Christmas. Why? Because by then, other people will have stepped up. Are you at least improving working conditions? What are they? Yeah, no, I think I'll pass, thanks. What? I've got another job. Another job at another company, where they treat me better. But we need you, now. And I don't need you. That's not how this works. Do you regret asking me to leave? No, this just proves how unreasonable you always were. Now please come back.
Very well done.
400 billion.
So, from this, I think it was actually, this month, furlough ends in the UK following the pandemic, which means many people are going to be, unfortunately, laid off. And there is no safety net. The only safety net, of course, is universal credit.
Pounds of fiscal support is starting to slip away. It was the cash propping up an economy in free fall and added up to the biggest peacetime support package seen in British history. But now that chapter is coming to a close, and the squeeze on household incomes looks set to begin.
What's happening in terms of prices is the biggest upward pressure we've seen in a decade, from rising energy prices in particular. But because that is combined with big cuts to benefits, this is not like anything we've seen this century. This is a big cost of living squeeze this winter, and it's going to be low-income families who are, front and centre in the front line of that hit.
As always, it's always the case. PMAC, thanks so much for that super chat. It's always, as I said, the poor and the working class who are at the sharp end of this. Rishi Sunak doesn't understand what it's like to live on universal credit or to suffer the consequences of being in a situation where you have to decide, can I pay the rent this month, or do I pay my electricity bill? Do I decide to put food on the table, or do I try to keep a roof over my head? We're going to look at universal credit uplift, of course, but the furlough, many people have been supported over the last number of months. As I said, I'm an advocate for a UBI. I think furlough demonstrated the benefit of a UBI. It put money in people's pockets, and what did people do? They spent it in the economy. The economy is not collapsing because of furlough. It's collapsing because of the mismanagement as a consequence of Brexit.
The furlough scheme has helped pay the wages of 11.6 million workers. It's cost £70 billion, but today it comes to an end. The beleaguered hospitality sector will see its VAT bill rise from 5 to 12.5% today, and house buyers will no longer be able to access the stamp duty holiday. But the most controversial change remains the end to the £20 a week universal credit uplift, which goes next week. For people like Karen Isaac, that extra cash has been a lifeline, and she dreads it disappearing.
I can't sleep of a night because I seriously just worry about it all the time. I won't be able to afford heat in the house. I won't be able to put food on my plate. The worry, the main thing actually for me is the mental health, which is so underestimated because it's the stress all the time. It's there, and it makes you feel worthless. It makes me feel like I'm this small.
Today.
And it's I don't know how to even react to this, because none of this is necessary. You know, we have the mental stress that people are going through because this money that they had before is taken away. And they're going through, okay, can I pay for this? Can I pay for that? How am I going to get to the end of the week? How am I going to get to the end of the month? How am I going to pay my mortgage or pay my rent or put food on the table? It's a struggle. And it adds extra strain to people where they, you know, they get ill because of the stress of this, and then they're not able to work. And because they're not able to work, they need to take time off, and then they risk losing their job or losing money. Or in case of universal credit, you could be sanctioned if you're not able to work, if you're not able to attend interviews or send enough CVs.
Today, the government announced a new £500 million fund for struggling households to meet basic costs like food and heating through the winter, underlying the pressures facing low-income families. But the move was heavily criticised by charities for being inadequate, given it remains just a fraction of the £6 billion being withdrawn from universal credit.
500 million as opposed to 6 billion. So 6 billion was the universal credit uplift, and they're replacing it with 500 million pounds. Like 500 million pounds for 11 million people. This is on, I don't know how many people are on universal credit, but it's not going to be enough.
The Chancellor was on a visit close to his constituency in Yorkshire today, promising not to turn his back on those who need help, even if the type of support is scaled back.
There were things that we did during the crisis to help people get through the worst part of coronavirus, and I think, like furlough ending, the UC uplift, it's natural that those things will come to an end. But we're not done supporting people. Our plan for jobs is literally throwing the kitchen sink at helping people get the skills they need and find new opportunities.
But while furlough has protected the jobs market,
I just want to read this comment from Derek, who says, I'm on universal credit. I'm on universal credit. Will now be living on less than £300 a month. I'd really like to, if it's possible, it doesn't have to be yourself, Derek, but I'd really like to speak to somebody who's on universal credit who'd be willing to do a video or something on this, because as I'm outside the UK, it's difficult for me to understand, you know, how universal credit works. What are the restrictions, what are the sanctions, how they work as well. And I'd like to understand how someone is supposed to live on £300 a month. And how do you live on £300 a month? You're expected to, but how do you do it?
pockets of vulnerable people remain.
Save travel! Save travel!
Airlines still caught up in travel bans have had half of their staff on the scheme over the summer, and it's unclear how many of those jobs will manage to come back. While the over 60s have taken over from the young as the biggest age group still on furlough, with many of those made redundant increasingly unable to rejoin the workforce.
What a moment then for petrol prices to hit an 8-year high and domestic energy costs to soar. The economy as a whole could also face an era of stagflation, when growth falls back but inflation climbs, a slow rotting combination for UK PLC.
Turning the economy back on is actually much more difficult than just switching it back off.
And does the Chancellor have any levers to pull in this?
Well, absolutely. He cannot go ahead with the cut to universal credit, which is the part of this that is like a kind of, Exocet missile fired at the living standards of low-income Britain.
I really don't understand the political benefit of, because it's all politics at the end of the day, I don't understand the political benefit of cutting universal credit. Really, I understand it might keep some middle-class Tories happy. Look, the poor are getting poorer. Great. So that means I'm getting richer. The divide between myself and the poor is widening. They're being pushed further and further away. That makes me happy. Maybe that's who Rishi Sunak wants to keep happy. I really don't understand the political benefit of cutting universal credit. You're just making enemies.
The worst recession in 300 years saw employment fall
Keep people down, Max. That's probably true.
by only 3%. A remarkable success for the Chancellor. But that chapter is ending, and the recovery, already stuttering with supply chain shocks and shortages, looks like it will bring a whole new set of challenges for Mr. Sunak.
Elia Ibrahimi. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Miata Fanbula of the New Economics Foundation and by Professor Philip Booth of the Institute of Economic Affairs. Dr. Fanbula, furlough's been costing so far £68 billion. We can't possibly afford that sort of money for long, can we?
Well, I think you have to think about the counterfactual. Imagine if we hadn't have had the furlough scheme, the absolute scarring impact on the economy, which quite frankly would cost far more. But, you know, for me,
And she makes a valid point here, and an even more valid point about for the reason to have a universal basic income. You know, if we took that £70 billion and invested in universal basic income, you're taking money and giving it to the public. And what do the public do? Because if you give money to the banks, as we saw back in 2007, 2008, what happened was the banks, many of them were insolvent. Many banks collapsed. Many assets had to be bought by the state. They had to set up, for example, in Ireland, they set up a state bank to buy rotten banks and rotten investments. But instead of giving the money to the banks who hoard it or who buy back shares, or companies that buy back shares, give it to the people. The people will spend it in the economy. People will buy petrol. They will do car repairs. They will go for an extra, pizza or something. They will go for an extra coffee at their local coffee shop. They will decide, I'm going to actually get a haircut more often than I usually do because I have some extra money. That money is invested in the local economy. Some of it, of course, will be, people will buy more stuff on Amazon or whatever, but you're still investing in it's still money that's going to be invested in the economy. Giving it to people, they will spend it. Give it to corporations, give it to banks, they will not spend it, they will hoard it. And it doesn't find its way into the economy. This is something very beneficial of the furlough scheme.
the key thing is furlough was put in order to deal with an economic crisis. We are not out of that crisis yet. We're not out of the woods yet. And it feels incredibly short term to be trying to pull the brakes on it. With the analysis we've done with the New Economics Foundation suggests of the million people still on furlough, about 700,000 will be at risk of redundancy. And to be doing it at the same time as you're cutting universal credit will not just put lots of families into hardship, but it will have a knock-on effect on the economy and on the recovery. We need people to spend to stimulate the economy. The government's about to put a brake on that.
Thanks, QA Library says 6 million people are on universal credit, where only approximately 1.55 million unemployed people. So 4.5 are working. Note, not all unemployed will be on universal credit. Yes, so not everyone who's unemployed is on universal credit. And then also many people who are working are also on universal credit.
Complete madness.
But in fairness, there are about 1 million job vacancies at the moment. Why should we go on paying to keep people off work?
Because there's a mismatch. So, you might have 1 million people on furlough, but they will not necessarily have the skills in order to fill those vacancies. We should be doing what other countries are doing. You look across to Europe, look across to Germany, they've kept a permanent scheme because they know that they can turn it on and turn it off at moments of crisis. They can deploy it to particular sectors. What we should be saying is, actually, there's a whole lot of people we need to retrain. Let's not just dump them onto the labour market, have mass redundancies and have the negative impacts of that. Let's get people working part-time, subsidised by furlough and retraining, and then we can move people into the jobs that are being created and into the jobs that exist. But just to say we've got 1 million jobs, we're going to turn off furlough, a whole lot of people who don't have the right skill sets will be dumped onto the labour market, makes absolutely no sense.
Professor Booth, there are about 1 million people still on furlough. Why are we pulling the rug from under them when the pandemic isn't over? Spain has just extended its furlough right through to February.
Well, I think some of these continental European models of labour markets are not really the right ones to follow. They tend to have very high levels of youth unemployment and very high levels of long-term unemployment. And over 90% of the people who were on furlough are now no longer on furlough. At the same time, and it's one of the reasons why we have so many supply pressures within the economy, shortages in shops, care homes are unable to employ care workers, shortages of teachers, and shortages of people working in catering as well in those businesses which have gone back to normal. There are huge numbers of job vacancies in those areas, whilst at the same time we're paying people to do nothing. Now, this was, or to work a very limited number of hours. Now, this made some sense when we thought that the impact of the pandemic was going to last a relatively short period of time, and we could kind of freeze the economy in aspic for a few weeks or even 2 or 3 months. But we're now talking about 18 or 19 months. The UK labour market creates and destroys about 5 million jobs every year, about 500,000 jobs, roughly speaking, every month. Patterns of demand and supply change all the time, and furlough is stopping people from moving into the new jobs which will be created in the post.
I don't believe that, because if people who are on furlough, they can decide to work. You're not forbidden from working if you're on furlough. Or correct me in the comments, but as far as I know, you can work when you're on furlough. And you can leave furlough if people want to get back into it. But people who are on furlough is because they don't have a choice, because their employer hasn't asked them to come back. Now, you're not being forced to return, but as far as I know, people are not being if you haven't been asked to return, then you stay on furlough. But if you've been asked to return, I think most people would prefer to return to work. Some people may prefer to stay on furlough, but the vast majority want to get back into employment, because there's a risk that if you're on furlough for a long time, your job may be lost. You'd prefer to be working because then you know that you have a job. There's a risk that many people stay on furlough because they know that there isn't a job at the end. The company doesn't need them back.
COVID economy. We don't know whether or not the air transport sector will.
So Gareth McDonald, thanks so much for that super chat. Just check I didn't miss another one. No, okay.
Expand to its previous pre-COVID size. If it does, we don't know what the patterns of demand and supply will be, but we do know that there are significant labour shortages in certain parts of the economy.
Right. Well, Dr. Fadbula, it's much harder to find a job when you're out of work, isn't it? Isn't it wrong to end furlough and break that link with their current jobs?
100%. All the lessons of any industrial transition, and by the way, we are going through a transition at the moment. There are sectors like aviation that may not recover from the fallout of this pandemic.
J Lock, thanks so much for that super chat. Hi Max, I'm a new viewer tonight. Sorry I can't be more, but I'm really enjoying it. Thank you so much for that. No, there's guys, you don't need. I understand. Look, everyone's going through a very, very difficult moment at the very difficult moment, financial moment, and if you can send a super chat, greatly appreciated. But there's no obligation. Please remember that. Your support by smashing a like button. That's all you have to do. Okay. So thanks so much for that. And J Luck, great to have you on the stream tonight. Thanks so much for that super chat.
And, we have a choice. You either just say, let's leave it to the market. It will all work itself out. By the way, when we've done that in the past, the impact on our communities has lasted for generations. It is deeply scarring. It is far better to say, actually, there is the opportunity to retrain people. It's much easier to be engaged in the labour market if you are in a job. So stay part-time. A whole lot of people who are on furlough are working part hours, retrain the rest of the time, and then have that transition that is smooth and that's just. It is a choice that we have. We've made this mistake in the past. We made it in the 1980s. We've made it coming out of other economic crises. We have a choice to do something different. And the Chancellor and the government are making a choice. It's short term and it will come back and bite them.
Professor Booth, Helia's report, we saw.
So, as we've seen, it's so many people are going to come off furlough. Many of them are staying on furlough because they need the money and they still have a job. But there is a real risk that many people will leave the furlough scheme to nothing. There will be no job because the economy has not fully recovered. Some parts of it have recovered, but then we're seeing so many other influences. Brexit, for example. Brexit is not helping the situation, and there's a massive number of people unemployed, but those people are not skilled. Those people are not always in the areas where there is jobs available. Anyway, let's move on. We're getting close to the end of the stream tonight anyway, but I just wanted to raise this story, which was interesting. You've probably heard it already. Tory donor made life peer and appointed as government minister. No, not Lord Frost. Malcolm Offord, who's donated almost £150,000 to the Conservatives, sent to the Lords and became minister in Scotland office. A financier, that's all you need to do. Okay, guys, if you can't get things sorted, if you're poor, if you'd like universal credit uplift to be maintained, all you need to do is donate to the Conservative Party. Maybe not 150,000, maybe 50,000, that would do it. Donate to the Conservative Party £50,000 and your problems disappear overnight. I don't know why so many people don't understand that. So a financier who donated almost £150,000 to the Conservatives has been made a life peer and given a ministerial job. That was a good investment, wasn't it? Downing Street has announced, not the information was leaked or how brazen they are, how brazen the corruption is. They know that no one's going to do anything about it. Yeah, we're corrupt. Just get used to it. We're corrupt. That's the new normal. Malcolm Offord, founder and chair of the Edinburgh-based boutique investment. It's like these companies probably don't actually do anything. They're just, halfway houses for corruption. Company Badenoch and Co. will be made a life peer, a statement said, and become a junior minister in the Scotland office. Offered a lot of money. Offord was a candidate for the Conservatives in May's Scottish parliamentary elections, a decision that prompted accusations of cronyism, given that he had donated £147,500 to the party. Offord stood as a list candidate in the Lothian region, but was not elected. Because probably the people were like, no, that guy looks dodgy. He is the latest Conservative donor or associate to be sent to the House of Lords under Boris Johnson. That's all you need to do. You want to get into the House of Lords, big fat check to Boris Johnson, and there you go. The appointment was condemned by the SNP, the party's cabinet. This is fuel. This has to be fuel for the fire of independence. This guy donated to the Conservative Party, made a peer in the House of Lords. And he's going to decide, in a sense, not directly but indirectly, he's going to decide Scotland's future. You can't get rid of him. He's in the House of Lords. He's made a life peer. He can't be voted out. How did he get in? Was he elected by the people? No, he tried to be elected by the people, but the people said no. And he gave a donation to Boris Johnson's party, and he was made a peer. It's almost perfect. It's almost a perfect example that the SNP should be using. Vicky, thank you so much for that super chat. Thank you, Vicky. Have a great evening. I hope you're enjoying the stream. The SNP Stuart Hosey MP said the stench of rampant cronyism surrounding this Tory government grows day by day. There are already serious questions facing the Tories over the use of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money for vanity projects and COVID contracts, but to now hand out roles and peerages to party donors shows contempt for democracy. James Gillen killed the union. The union, yes. Look, I don't want to go down that road, but look, I'm a supporter of Scottish independence, but I think things like this, should be put up on a billboard. During the SNP, if they wanted to run a successful campaign, and they probably, they know it better than I do, but I'm sure they could take pictures of these people, on a lost election, donated Tories became peer, deciding Scotland's future. Something like that. How would Tories, not so much Tory members, but Tory voters, how would they excuse that? They can see it's corruption. It goes on to say, in December last year, of 54 people ennobled by Johnson, 54, 13 had either funded the Tories or had an employment or personal connection to Johnson. Among those made peers in December were Johnson's own brother Joe. I could understand if. I'm not a huge advocate for the House of Lords. I'm in two minds about an unelected second chamber, but his own brother. How is that not tin pot dictatorship? How is that not banana republic territory? The Prime Minister made his own brother a member of the House of Lords. And nobody had a problem with that. His friend Evgeny Lebedev, a Russian-born newspaper owner who formerly hosted the Prime Minister at his Perugia mansion. He lives in a castle, a 13th century castle. Or not own, he doesn't live, obviously he doesn't live there, he just owns it for parties. Johnson's former chief strategic advisor, Edward Lister, was also made a peer as well as a series of well-known Brexiters, including former England cricketer Ian Botham, who likes to show his pieces about. Mike, thanks so much for that super chat. Was going to give this to the Tory, but you have it if you make me a sir. I'll do my best. I have some contacts. I know somebody who's a member of the House of Lords, so he may be able to put in a word for you. I wouldn't trust him though. He's a Brexiteer. Thanks so much for that, and I love the picture. Oh my god. Okay, also on Thursday, Downing Street announced that Stephen Parkinson, a former Tory staffer and candidate, lobbyist and campaign manager for Vote Leave, who was made a peer in 2019, has been given another government job. Yay! Already a whip in the Lords, he has been made junior minister in the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. The latest crop of peerages have taken the total size of the Lords to more than 830, despite a cross-party agreement 3 years ago that numbers should over time be reduced to 600. See, the idea of the Lords is that what you do is, as Prime Minister, you send as many people to the House of Lords so that if you have trouble passing legislation, you should have enough of your cronies in the House of Lords to stop any bounce back, so it wouldn't be bounced back to Parliament, the legislation. So if you have enough of your cronies over there, it will pass through without any problems. Remember, these people are not elected, and a lot of them are there just because of donations or because they're Boris Johnson's, family. I'm not sure. Is Boris Johnson, has he put his father in there yet? The former Speaker of the Upper House, Lord Fowler, has been among critics of the expanded size, saying there was in particular a need to reduce the number of passengers who contribute little. Yeah, there are people in the House of Lords who don't even turn up. If they do turn up, they get, I think, £300 a day. That's not too bad, is it? £20 a week, we have to take that away. But we're going to make sure that people in the House of Lords who already have money, most of them are already millionaires, we're going to make sure that they earn £300 a day. Not a week, a day, for just turning up. They don't actually have to participate. They just have to arrive, stay there for a certain number of hours, and then bugger off. And they're paid 305. Sorry, Katrina. Thanks. Tax-free. And it's tax-free. Thanks for that comment, Katrina. Yes. So £305 a day for just being there. That's not too bad, is it? And Boris Johnson's brother and this guy is getting it as well. But as I said, this should be used by the SNP or pro-independence parties in Scotland as a tool for the independence campaign. You're paying for this as well. You know, the £300 is coming out of the taxes paid by the Scottish people as well as the Welsh and people in Northern Ireland and England all together. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks to everyone who smashed the like button as well. Remember to smash it on the way out if you haven't smashed it on the way in. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who sent a super chat tonight. Thanks so much, greatly appreciated. I know it's a difficult time, so don't feel an obligation to do so, only if you can. And I want to say a massive thank you, of course, always to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Done a great job again tonight. Thanks so much for that. Before we leave, of course, we have our one for the road. So let me just... Pineapple Boy says, test and trace consultants get paid £1,000 a day. Yes. I was going to say, yes, but that's the private sector. But no, it's not. It's actually coming out of the £37 billion. So just before we finish, I'll show you this funny video. Oh, Ministerian, thank you so much for that. How do we start a petition, Bojo, to make you a lord, Baron Max? I think. Well, as I said, I know somebody who has some connections to the House of Lords. He will remain nameless, but I could ask him to put in a good word. So thanks very much for that, Ministerian.
Dear Mr. Dickens, the names you use in your books are ridiculous. Who ever heard of a Mr. Micawber or a Uriah Heep? Yours sincerely, Mrs. Jane Willywobbles. Dear Mr. Dickens, your book Oliver Twist is nothing less than leftist propaganda. It sets a terrible example to young orphan boys by suggesting that if they are lazy, good-for-nothing runaway thieves, they will succeed in life. If I were an orphan, left to fend for myself in a laissez-faire world, I would simply not be an orphan. Yours sincerely, Charles Dowridge, Conservative MP for Winchester. Dear Charlie, if I can call you Charlie, lol, you might remember me from our days in the bottle blacking factory. I was the one who used to beat the shit out of you. Anyway, just wondering, we could go for a drink or something? Haha, mate. Also, do you know Wilkie Collins? Would love to meet him. Dear Charles Dickens, really loving the old Curiosity Shop. 10 out of 10. Can't wait for the next instalment of the serial, but just to let you know, if little Nell dies, I will come round and kill you with a poker. Oh, God. Dear Mr. Dickens, please send a daguerreotype of your feet. Why do I get so many of these? Dear Mr. Dickens, loved A Christmas Carol. What a twist at the end. Anyway, think it could be improved upon, so here follows 5 pages of suggestions for a sequel, A Christmas Carol 2, To Christmas 2 Carol. Dear Mr. Dickens, enjoyed Oliver Twist. However, why have you been depicting sex workers as people with feelings and stuff? It's disgraceful. P.S. Please sign a copy for my mistress. Charlie, my boy, hope you're good. Love to your wife. Can I have 10 quid? Love, Dad. Dear Mr. Dickens, I was outraged at your portrayal of Fagin. Oh, yeah, well, that's fair enough. If anything, I think it could be more offensive. Okay.
I was actually expecting the first one to be Jacob Rees-Mogg, but it was another Tory MP. We got there in the end. So, guys, I want to say thanks again to everyone for coming on tonight. Thanks to everyone for sending a super chat, and thanks once again, of course, to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Everyone have a great weekend. Remember to stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you all next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel, 8 p.m. British summertime or Greenwich Mean Time, whichever it is. Summer is over, isn't it? Still quite warm here, but I think summer is over. So have a great weekend. See you soon. Take care. And I remember those who are on Patreon, I'll see you after the stream for the post-stream chat on Discord. Take care. Good night.